Hi and welcome to Seen and Heard. My name is Allison Tristao and I'm the Community Field Representative for Western United Dairies. Today, Paul Souza, the Director of Environmental Services, is coming on the podcast to talk about the Dairy Plus program in relation to water quality changes that will be happening in the future. So let's get into it.
Yosemite Farm Credit is the farmer's choice for agriculture financing. As a farmer-owned cooperative, we are dedicated to serving our neighbors in the agriculture community with financial products and services tailored to your operation and backed with the relationship you can trust. Whether you're purchasing real estate, making improvements to the dairy, or wanting to purchase or lease equipment, we're here to help our members prosper. Visit our website at YosemiteFarmCredit.com to find a branch location nearest you.
Pacific Gas and Electric is here to remind you that signs keep you safe. Sections of our natural gas transmission pipeline travel underground and beneath agricultural land. For the safety of you, your family, and your employees, pipeline markers are placed to indicate the approximate location of the pipe as a reminder to use extra care. Removing a pipeline marker creates a serious safety hazard. To have additional markers placed or report damaged or missing markers, please call your PG&E account manager or our agricultural customer service center at 877-311-3276. To learn more, visit www.pge.com/agsafety. Remember, signs keep you safe.
So, Paul, we've talked about the Dairy Plus program before, but can you give a quick summary for those who may have not heard of it?
Sure. Yeah, it is a new program. And so folks have become familiar with the Alternative Manure Management Program, also known as AMP, or the Dairy Digester Research and Development Program, or the Digester Program, that CDFA have been running for a few years. Those aim to reduce manure methane emissions in different ways. The digesters aim to capture methane that's been produced from manure and use it as a renewable energy, displacing fossil fuels. And the AMP program aims to not produce methane in the first place by keeping it out of an anaerobic lagoon where it could decompose and form methane. And so that funding has been coming from the state, and those programs have become very competitive. Folks are aware of them, and they go after them. There's a lot of applications, and related to that, my plate is full with current AMP applications. I really can't take on any more. The application deadline is August 28th, and so I am busy working on those. But as you mentioned, Dairy Plus is a new program, and it always takes a little bit of time for things to kind of get figured out and folks to understand it and jump on board. It's running for the first time now with the open application period, and it's using federal funding. Again, like I said, we've been using state funding, but now we also have some federal funding. This program resulted from an application that the California Dairy Research Foundation, or CDRF, made to USDA for their Climate Smart Commodities program. So this is additional funding on top of what we've been receiving through CDFA all this time. And this program aims to support advanced manure management technologies that reduce methane and improve water quality. It's a 5-year program that grant for $85 million total, $75 million of which is going to be used for on-farm projects. So a lot of new money available to farms, to dairies specifically, to implement these advanced manure management technologies. The remaining funding is going to be used to research emission reductions that were achieved and to evaluate the opportunity to market climate-smart dairy products.
So what changes will be made to water quality regulations in the future?
That's a good question. And I've spoken about these two things separately, but I wanted to tie them together here. So, primarily we're talking about Dairy Plus here, which is a climate-smart commodities program. It's about reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But I want to tie that to water quality in this podcast and really make a connection. And I hope by the end of the podcast that I've done that. So a little bit of background here. CDFA started this Manure Recycling and Innovative Products Task Force a few years ago to look at technologies that both reduce methane emissions, which is a greenhouse gas, and benefit water quality. As that work was wrapping up, this grant from USDA was released. And so the work from the MRIP, like I said, Manure Recycling Innovative Products Task Force, is MRIP, that work was repurposed into this grant application to USDA for the Climate Smart Commodities Grant. This funding obviously required that applicants address greenhouse gas emissions, but the CDRF application went a step further and added that these must be advanced manure management technologies that also benefit water quality. This is done primarily by getting excess nitrogen in a form that can be moved off of the dairy, like, for example, turning manure into solid manure and composting it, and then it's available to orchards or other farms around the dairy to displace commercial fertilizer use or for soil health benefits. This can be accomplished through advanced solid manure separation, such as a weeping wall, or using flocculants to remove more of the solids from flush water and therefore getting more of the nutrients, such as nitrogen, out of that liquid waste stream and into a solid waste stream, which then can be composted and moved off the dairy. Or differently, nitrogen can also be treated with something like vermifiltration, which turns, or the manure can be treated with vermifiltration, which turns the nitrogen in the flush water into nitrogen gas, which is safe and inert, and it makes up about 80% of the atmosphere. Those are the technologies that are currently in Dairy Plus, but the goal is to add more of these technologies as there is more time to develop them. And so in future rounds, there may be more technologies than this available.
So what changes will be made to water quality regulations in the future?
So this is important to understand. A very important piece of this is, maybe you've got things under control right now under water quality, but things are changing. Changes, some of them have gone, some changes have already happened, and some are going to be happening in the near future. There's some examples to this. The CV Salts Nitrate Control Program was adopted by the State Water Board and the Regional Water Quality Control Board a few years ago, and that is going into effect. It's placing local control that's looking for local solutions. And these nitrate management zones are identifying, sources of nitrate loading in their local management zone and what are the solutions to that. And so that is going to completely change what we've been used to as far as water quality regulations. And dairies are going to start to see, some of the effects of that and some of the pressures of that. So there is a whole new, thing in effect that is going to change the way water quality regulations are impacted and affected locally. Also, there is going to be a new dairy general order in the Central Valley that's going to have stricter requirements when it does go into effect. I am not holding my breath. This is going to be a few years before this comes into effect, but it will happen, and there's conversations happening around it. And so changes are coming. Another one that's a little bit unrelated, but it definitely has an impact on this is Sigma. So maybe you've got, a great balance of, land available for manure application, but if Sigma is going to restrict the water available for irrigation and you're going to have less irrigated land in the future, you may come out of balance even if you're in balance today. And so these solutions may apply to you as a result of the changes coming from Sigma.
So Paul, can you talk about how Dairy Plus can help dairies prepare for these changes while also reducing manure methane emissions?
Sure, that's a good question. So the government is spending billions of dollars to address climate change, but we have more issues than just climate change, like water quality, as I've been mentioning. The answer is to implement solutions using climate change funding, which is readily available, that addresses multiple issues like water quality, in addition to greenhouse gas emissions and other things that you're looking for. Maybe to modernize your dairy, update your dairy, make your dairy more efficiently. You really need to be looking at how can I use this climate change funding that the government is giving out at this time and prioritizing to address other issues on my dairy. the overarching goal for water quality, looking at the water quality piece of this, is going to be to achieve a whole farm nitrogen balance. The idea there is that the nitrogen that is produced by the cows and heifers on your dairy is balanced between what you can safely use on your crops and exporting the rest. So we would look to export all the excess nitrogen so that you only have to manage on your farm the nitrogen that you can handle on your, with your crops, and then be able to manage that appropriately. And a big piece of this conversation is how much of that nitrogen and the nutrients end up in the liquid form in your lagoon that can't go very far from the dairy versus how much of that ends up in the solid form, either separator solids, corral solids that could be put on a truck or moved a little further from the dairy. And that balance between the nutrients in the liquid and the solid fraction is going to be a big part of the conversation.
So, Paul, is there anything else you'd like to leave the producers with before wrapping up?
Yeah, I have a couple of important closing points. So one very important one is don't fall for the first salesperson that shows up on your dairy with an advanced manure technology. Dr. Deanne Meyer from UC Cooperative Extension was kind of famous for saying, have a job description for the technology that you're implementing. Don't just, pick one and put it in place. An example would be if you choose a technology that only reduces a part, let's say 20% of your excess nitrogen. So, you went a little ways down the path, but now you're stuck with this technology. You made an investment in it. You have a piece of equipment on your dairy, but it's not getting you to your end goal. You're kind of stuck halfway, partway towards the solution, but you don't have a full solution. So it's important to talk to your environmental consultant or to talk to me about what solutions are appropriate for your dairy. And the California Dairy Research Foundation and CDQAP are coming up with an evaluation tool that will help you decide this. Every dairy is different, and every dairy is going to require a different set of solutions. One of my goals over the last couple of years has been to build a toolbox that is full of tools so that every dairy can find a solution in the toolbox. But you need to know exactly, what problem you're facing so that you know exactly what tool from the toolbox will fit your operation. In closing, I want to say this is a time of opportunity to access funding to prepare your dairy for the future. A dairy, where methane is, strictly looked at by either the government or whoever is buying our milk, and where water quality is also going to be scrutinized. There is funding available to help you move your dairy into the future, and it's time to take advantage of this opportunity and really prepare your dairy for the future that we see ahead of us.
Thanks for sharing this information, Paul. We could also put Paul's information in the show notes. He has a wealth of knowledge, so you can reach out to him with any questions that you have.
Yep. Anybody has any questions, feel free to give me a call or to email me at the office.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks again, Paul, for coming on the podcast, and thank you to those who are listening. If you would like a notification when a new episode releases, you could subscribe to the podcast. Have a good week.
Did you know that you can turn your dairy manure into cash? Bennett Environmental is offering above-ground dairy digesters at no cost to you. These systems can also remove nitrates from your lagoons to help you comply with water board regulations. Our proven above-ground technology will generate income for your dairy into the foreseeable future. Because we truck the renewable natural gas off-site, your dairy can profit regardless of your location. Bennett Environmental, turning your wastewater liabilities into sustainable assets. Learn more at bennett-environmental.com.
Are you tired of hearing that the main way to save water is fallowing? Are you tired of seeing articles about how alfalfa and corn waste water? At Common Good Water, we combine the best-in-class subsurface drip system and precision crop management services, including pest control. Our verification program qualifies for public funding, and we want to help you continue farming in California. Contact your groundwater sustainability agency and ask how you can work with Common Good Water. Visit commongoodwater.com.
Thank you to the Western United Dairies generous business sponsors, the Morning Star Company, Holt of California, Farm Credit Alliance, PG&E, Arata, Swingle, Van Egmond and Goodwin Law Offices, Yosemite Farm Credit, F&R Ag Services, Moss Energy Works, California Dairy Magazine, Bennett Environmental, and Common Good Water. We appreciate our sponsors and thank them for their continued support. While Western United Dairies respects the varied views of our guests, please note that the opinions expressed in the Seen and Heard podcast may not necessarily reflect the positions of the Western United Dairies Board of Directors or our sponsors. If you would like more information on how to sponsor Western United Dairies or this podcast, please send us an email at info@wudairies.com.